Discover 3 miraculous ways Christ reveals divine strength. A prophetic blessed morning prayer in the quiet English village of Hillcrest, nestled among lush green hills, an unfathomable presence stirred each dawn. David, a devoted father, led his family in prayer at the quaint chapel dedicated to St. Jude. As they knelt together, the air thick with hope and trembling expectancy, they often felt something special, a warmth brushing against their skin, like a whisper from heaven. Little did they know, a trial unlike any other loomed over them. The illness that crept through the village was insidious and cruel. It took not just bodies, but also hearts. Friends turned fearful, family bonds strained with doubt. But David held fast to his unwavering belief. He had seen miracles unfold through prayer. Just days before, old Mrs. Thompson had been touched by a powerful vision of healing, declaring that St. Jude himself had revealed astonishing promises. It gave her strength until the inevitable claimed her life. This left David shaken as his knees once felt steady on holy ground. The chapel's candlelight flickered with shadows of despair. One night, as he paced the pews, remembering the warmth of collective devotion, David felt a pulse of fear. The burden of supporting his wife and 2 children weighed heavily. How could he guide them through such darkness? But then came a remarkable idea, a 40-day prayer journey together with fellow parishioners. He envisioned lifting their broken hearts before the Lord, trusting that a miracle awaited them. As David rallied his neighbors, the prayer group formed in the chapel each evening. They poured out their souls, heartfelt cries mingled through the stone walls. One night, during prayer, light streamed through the stained glass and illuminated an elderly woman at the rear of the chapel. Gripped by an unexplainable presence, she rose slowly, her voice trembling, declaring, "I have seen his hand among us. A healing prophecy rests upon this land." Gasps rippled through the congregation. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The chapel erupted with fervor, voices rising like incense to the heavens. Each prayer lifted into the night, a tapestry woven with threads of hope. David felt a renewed spirit as he took the hands of those around him, squeezing tightly, determination surging through his veins. Would they indeed witness his miracles? But doubt will test the strongest of hearts. Days later, the doctor's grave expression pierced through him like a dart. "I'm afraid your test results are not what we hoped. You will need to prepare yourself for the worst." The very breath was knocked from David's lungs, despair sizzling in his chest. Just as he felt himself unraveling, he remembered the prophecy. The prophecy was alive, it shimmered like the first light of dawn, full of promises, beckoning him to believe. He stepped outside, searching for a sign. That's when he saw her again, the elderly woman. Her eyes sparkled like stars, exuding peace. "Hold fast to your faith, dear heart," she whispered, "the healing shall come like a rushing river." And in that moment, something ignited within him. The congregation gathered around him, igniting a passionate fire that broke forth in praise. They would pray, united as one, against all odds. As they knelt in fervent prayer, a whirlwind of faith encapsulated the chapel, a whirlwind filled with the expectancy of miracles. Would the heavens indeed answer their cries? Would their trials transform into testimonies? As the final notes of their prayer lingered in the air like incense, David felt an electrifying sense of unity wash over the gathering. The walls of the chapel vibrated with devotion, their collective hope lifting them higher, closer to heaven. Each heart in the room swelled with an unspoken promise, a whisper of something magnificent just beyond their grasp. That night, as he returned home to his family, David's mind raced with thoughts of impending miracles. How could something so profound occur in their village? What would healing truly look like? He imagined Mrs. Thompson's eyes gleaming with life, her laughter filling the air, a comforting balm amidst the sorrow. Yet, deep down, doubt danced on the edges of his faith, shadows lurking in the corners of his heart, yet, love and faith must be their guide. He knelt at his bed, the soft glow of the moon illuminating the room. "Lord, grant me the strength to lead my family through this storm," he pleaded. As he prayed, a warm light filled his heart, chasing away the darkness. He felt the gentle reminder that, in their vulnerability, his strength would flourish. Days passed, and David, along with the prayer group, met each evening, pouring out their hopes and fears before the altar. Some nights, in the warmth of prayer, tears fell freely. Each tear spoke of love, loss, and longing, echoing their unyielding desire for divine intervention. One evening, as they joined hands, David noticed a shift in the atmosphere, a palpable sense of hope hung heavy in the air. Suddenly, the elderly woman spoke again, her voice ringing like a bell in the silence. "We are not alone," she declared. "He walks beside us, through our pain and struggle, and even now, he is working wonders." A spontaneous shout of praise erupted in the chapel. David felt the swell of faith as each voice blended into a beautiful symphony. He saw faces transformed, the heavy burdens lifting, a lightness settled among them like a thick blanket of warmth and joy. As the nights passed, they began to witness small miracles. The flowers in the chapel seemed more vibrant, smiles returned to familiar faces, and laughter broke through the clatter of anxiety. Children ran through the pews, their innocent joy a reminder of God's simplicity. Each revelation, though subtle, whispered, "Hold on. Change is on the horizon." But a distant shadow still loomed. Although the congregation began to feel bolstered in spirit, stories of illness continued to ripple through the village, touching their hearts with urgency. David, filled with righteous indignation, led them in prayer against despair. "We must storm the gates of heaven," he proclaimed, and they raised their voices as one, a chorus of faith determined to shatter the chains of fear. "Declare his promises," David encouraged, his heart pounding with fervor. "Let our voices be louder than our doubts." And that very moment, their pleas harmonized like heavenly music, filing upward toward the Almighty. Yet, even in their communal strength, David grappled with the reality of his own struggles. How could he truly believe when the presence of sickness still loomed over them? As the final Amen was said, hope mingled with uncertainty in his heart. That night, as he lay awake, he felt a strange sense of calm yet an unknown heaviness. Was the prophecy meant for him as well? Was there a divine plan woven into their struggles? He closed his eyes, surrendering his fears to the divine. "Reveal your will to me, Lord," he prayed, unsure what those heavenly whispers meant for his family. As morning broke, the sun smiled through the bedroom window, casting light across the room. David awakened with an urgency he couldn't quite place, a yearning to seek what was yet unseen. Just then, a knock echoed from the chapel door. What awaited him on the other side would mark the beginning of the next chapter in their journey of faith. Would it be the miracle they so deeply yearned for, or another challenge to face? David opened the chapel door slowly, his heart racing. The morning sun bathed the small gathering in golden hues, illuminating the eager faces gathered outside. There, standing at the threshold of hope, was a young girl, her bright eyes filled with an eagerness that made his heart leap. "Mr. David. You must come quickly." Before he could respond, she tugged at his sleeve, excitement barely contained. "It's Mrs. Thompson. She's awake and she's talking." A rush of energy coursed through David's veins. His doubt momentarily faded, replaced by the surge of possibility. "Lead the way," he urged, and as he followed the girl, he felt a knot of anticipation in his stomach. As they crossed the village, the morning air seemed alive, a melody of birds singing, trees whispering, and children laughing. Each step brought them closer not just to a house, but to hope that had been wavering like a fragile candle flame. Along the way, David noticed familiar faces peering from doorways, eyebrows raised, smiles wide, sensing the change in the atmosphere, the palpable excitement dancing through the village. When they reached Mrs. Thompson's home, a hush fell over the small crowd that gradually gathered. David stepped into the dimly lit room, where the elderly woman lay surrounded by her loved ones. Her usual pallor was replaced with a glow, as if infused with the very light of dawn. "David," she whispered, her voice soft yet full of conviction. "Oh, how I've missed you all. It feels like I've been absent from this world." Tears pooled in his eyes. This moment was nothing short of divine. "Mrs. Thompson, we've been praying for you," he replied, his voice trembling with awe. "I felt your prayers," she murmured, reaching a frail hand toward him. "He's not just with us in the good days, David. He walks with us, even in the shadows. I've seen such wonders." As she spoke, the presence of the Lord settled heavily in the room, like a thick blanket wrapping everyone tighter in his love. Those gathered could feel it stirring, hearts rekindled, spirits ignited as each voice echoed words of gratitude. David turned to find the faces in the room awash with astonishment, belief rekindled. In that sacred moment, he grasped something profound. It was as if doubt had transformed into a tapestry of belief woven tightly through their collective experience of faith. "Let us pray together," he suggested, his heart racing with hope. As they joined hands, the room filled with voices declaring promises of healing, and each prayer rang with authority. It felt like their voices were connecting with something far beyond their earthly existence, breaking through to the very throne of God. After the prayers concluded, whispers surfaced, each sharing what they understood of this miraculous moment. "I knew she would wake," one voice declared. "Faith does not waver. It holds the key," another declared with joy. In the back of the room, the elderly woman who had always stirred their faith said, "This is just the beginning, dear ones. You have yet to see the fullness of His grace revealed." An ecstasy of faith flowed among them, filling the air with a sweet aroma of victory and joy. David couldn't shake the feeling that their day had transformed into something more than they had anticipated. Yet, even in the joy, could they embrace the message hidden deeper? Was this miracle just an intimation of greater wonders to unfold? So many in the village awaited healing too. Was the divine journey just getting started? As David gazed out of the window, a thought struck him. What if there were more to this plan than anyone could decipher? He turned back to the gathering, a mix of hope and questions bubbling inside. "We have seen His hand today," he said, voice steady but vibrant. "But what comes next? Let us remain vigilant. There is still so much to discover." In that moment, a new expectancy hung like electricity in the air, a stirring of faith that hinted at only the beginning of their journey. What further revelations awaited them? What signs would God choose to reveal next in their miraculous adventure? David's heart danced within him as he watched the joy ripple through the room. The atmosphere was thick with warmth and something sacredness could only describe. He could feel it, a divine current flowing, inviting and urging them onward. "Shh. Listen." A voice from the back spoke suddenly, breaking through the joyful chorus. The room fell silent, and a collective breath was held. In the stillness, they heard it, a soft, harmonic whispering. David turned toward the sound, his heart beating faster. Was it a trick of the mind? Or was the Lord revealing something to them? Mrs. Thompson's expression transformed, eyes wide with recognition. "It's Him. He's moving among us," she proclaimed. Her frail body seemed to radiate energy, pulsating as her faith surged. David felt a surge of joy flood his soul. As if by an unseen hand, the whispers clearly came into focus. Heartfelt testimonies spilled forth, each voice carried stories of faith kindled and flames revived. "I was lost, but then and miracles have followed us." David stood in awe. He witnessed their emotional transformation. It was like watching an old, withered tree bloom into vibrant life. For every tale shared, another spark ignited. The fear that had gripped the village, causing so many to doubt, began to crumble like dry leaves before a fresh breeze. "Let us not just celebrate what has happened," David said, voice rising with passion. "Let us declare His goodness. For in our praise, we discover His strength." The responses came like a gentle tide, washing through the group. He restores us. One cried. We will not fear. Another declared. It was a chorus of strength and unity. They were weaving a beautiful tapestry of faith. But amidst the celebration, an ache pulled at David's heart. He recalled meeting those who remained in silence, shrouded in darkness, still waiting for their miracle. What comfort could he offer them? He thought of old Mr. Finley, the widow May, and the young family struggling with life's burdens. That thought settled heavily on his soul, and he knew he must act. Let us not forget those who stand in shadow, David urged, glancing around the circle, eyes locked with each member. Together, we will carry this light to them, sharing what we have witnessed. There is healing to bring, voices needing hope. Something stirred again, a soft fluttering, as they absorbed his words. Yes, we must. Came a response, strong and resolute. Let our joy spill over. Emboldened by a shared spirit, David gathered the group, facing the open door of the chapel as they prepared to step into the world outside. The air hummed with fresh possibilities, and all nerves melted into purpose. With each step, they would be bringing hope to every corner of the village. As they poured forth from the chapel, the sunlight wrapped around them like a divine hug. Each footfall resonated on the cobblestones like a heartbeat of promise, echoing the conviction that their newly ignited flame of faith would touch every soul residing in shadows. David paused before the first house on their journey. Let us begin here, he said, pointing at the modest home before them. But just as he raised his hand to knock, a thunderous rumble echoed above. It was an ominous sound, the sky darkening as clouds rolled in. Storms? A voice from the group muttered. Anxiety flickered across the faces of the gathered. No. David asserted, a calmness sweeping over him. This is his way of reminding us light emerges from darkness. We're ready to carry that light. But in that moment, uncertainty loomed like a dark curtain. Could they face the storms ahead? What trials might test their faith? As they stood there, poised and unsure, David understood this journey was no longer just about witnessing miracles. It was also about walking through the storm, trusting in a power greater than themselves. He turned to the villagers, determination radiating from his heart. We must move forward. This light is meant to shine in the darkest places. Will you follow me? In trembling unity, together they would embark on a journey that hinted at profound transformations, unaware of all that awaited just beyond their grasp. What storms loomed on the horizon, and would their faith hold steady when the inevitable tempest descended? As David stood before the modest house, the vivid contrast of the encroaching storm against the light he carried sent shivers down his spine. The clouds loomed heavy, whispering a warning, but within him, a quiet resolve blossomed. His heart swelled with divine assurance, and he turned to the group gathered close. Remember, he said, his voice steady, every storm is a chance for God to show his strength. Those who trust in him will rise above. The villagers exchanged glances, and David could see the flicker of hope ignite within them. They might have felt the chill of uncertainty creeping in, but the warmth of recent miracles lingered in their thoughts, urging them onward. With a deep breath, he lifted his hand to knock on the door. Each subtle vibration seemed to echo in the atmosphere, amplifying the anticipation of what lay behind that threshold. Just as his knuckles tapped lightly against the wood, the door creaked open. Half hidden in the dim light of the home stood a figure, smoky shadows flitting around him. It was old Mr. Finley, a man usually vibrant with stories, but today his eyes betrayed a deep weariness. David, he rasped, tilting his head slightly, a sliver of hope glinting within his gaze. Is that you? Yes, Mr. Finley, David replied, stepping forward. We've come to share good news, to bring light into your home. The old man blinked slowly, as if trying to comprehend the sudden invasion of brightness into his shadowy world. Come in, he said, parting the door wider. Inside was dim, filled with dusty old furniture and echoes of laughter long gone. David's heart went out to him. We've gathered to declare his goodness, to remember the miracles he performs. And as he shared the testimonies from the chapel, he could feel the atmosphere shift. The air in the room thickened as stories of restoration filled the space like swirls of comforting incense, wrapping around Mr. Finley like a warm blanket. The old man's posture straightened, and his weary frown softened into a thoughtful smile. "I never believed," Mr. Finley murmured, "that I could see such things again." "Your faith can breathe life into rubble," David encouraged gently. "You carry the light, Mr. Finley. You've given so much love, and now it's time for that love to return to you." It was as if David's words stirred the very walls of the home, shaking off years of stagnation and despair. Mr. Finley's eyes glimmered with something almost magical, a potent mix of hope and faith, as he finally spoke. "Bring the others. Let us see what God has in store." As David turned back toward the door, he felt the stirrings of that light, like a gentle breeze at his back, pushing him forward into the unknown. He led the villagers deeper into the house, where stories flowed freely, and laughter eclipsed shadows, rejuvenating hearts once dull. "Where there is faith, there is light," David said, glancing at his companions. Each face told a story of former doubts, but now shone with new resilience. Together, they were creating a testimony of hope, but the storm outside intensified. The wind howled like a whispering spirit, urging them to hurry their mission. They could hear the occasional branch snap, a reminder of the forces at play beyond their small gathering. Despite that, a divine peace settled amongst them. David knew they had to spread this light further still, but as they prepared to leave Mr. Finley's home, questions began to swirl in his mind. What if the next house held despair too great for faith to bridge? What if their light flickered before the mighty storm? The group gathered outside, a renewed band of believers. The sky darkened ominously, echoing their fears, yet they also felt emboldened by miracles already witnessed. Would their light endure the tempest that was surely coming? As David led them down the path, the ground thrumming beneath their feet, he realized this was more than a journey, it was a venture into the very heart of God's promise. When they reached the next home, what miracles would they find waiting there, just beyond the threshold? And so, amidst the gathering storm, they marched onward, hearts steadfast and voices joined in one earnest prayer. As they walked toward the next house, dark clouds loomed overhead, swirling like a dance of shadows and light. The increasing wind wrapped around them, rustling the leaves and whipping their clothes, but within the group, a buoyant energy surged. David could feel the heartbeats of his companions, quickened by anticipation and an undeniable sense of purpose. "Stay close," he called, his voice rising above the gusts. "The light we carry is meant to shine even brighter in the darkness. Believe that." The villagers nodded, their faces set with determination. Each step seemed to pulse with a rhythm of hope, their spirits in sync, energized by the grace they experienced moments before at Mr. Finley's home. Reaching the next door, David stopped, feeling a weight of heaviness. There had been rumors of despair here, heartbreak buried under years of loss. This widow, they said, had lost not just her husband but also her faith, determination soiled by grief. Doubt crept back into his heart. What if they could not reach her? Breaking the silence, David lifted a trembling hand toward the door. He hesitated. "Shall we?" he whispered, his breath carried away by the wild winds. One of the villagers, Sarah, stepped forward, her eyes burning with holy fire. "Let us show her what faith can do," she replied fiercely. Encouraged, David knocked firmly. The soft thuds vibrated in the hollow space beyond the door, echoing a message of hope. A long moment passed, the anticipation mingled with anxiety, a fleeting thought that perhaps they would meet nothing but silence on the other side. Then, the door creaked open to reveal a weary woman, her spirit seemingly dulled by time's relentless embrace. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice fragile and hoarse. "Hello," David called, mustering warmth while looking straight into her weary eyes. "We're here to share goodness, to rekindle the light in your heart." The woman stepped back, hesitating as if afraid that hope might weigh too much. "Hope?" she echoed, her brow furrowing like old browning leaves. "Yes. God is bringing miracles to this village," he urged. "Hope still exists, even when storms threaten." She stared into the faces behind him, seeking the light shining forth from their eyes, the flickers of hope kindling within. "Miracles?" "Yes," David continued, his heart racing alive. "You are not alone. God sees your pain and will not abandon you." After a pause that stretched for moments into eternity, she stepped further back, revealing the cracked threshold of her home. "Then come," and she whispered, hope barely holding her voice. As they filed inside, the atmosphere shifted. The air felt heavier, soaked in grief, but David sensed a thickening warmth wrapping around them, as if angels themselves hovered close by. He and the villagers began to share stories, recounting how faith had risen in other homes, how despair had been shattered. With each testimony, he watched her spirit lift, eyes gleaming with a renewed light, as if each word quenched a thirst that had long been unfulfilled. "My husband," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes, "always said faith could move mountains." "Yes, and love can rebuild cities," someone chimed in. A collective gasp filled the air as the woman's heart finally responded to that truth. The wind outside howled, but within those walls, peace began to settle, stitching together the ragged edges of her soul. "You don't know how long I've waited to hear such words," she murmured, her voice growing stronger with every proclamation of hope that surrounded her. Joy ignited in David's heart. They had broken through. But as he basked in this small victory, doubt flickered again. Would the word still shine with truth when faced with the overwhelming darkness of what lay ahead? The storm roared fiercely outside the home, as if signaling a greater challenge, one that might strip away the light they had just kindled. With renewed purpose, David felt drawn to the window, looking out at the world growing more tempestuous by the second. "This storm won't beat us," he murmured, exuding faith for all to hear. But as he stood there, a singular question lingered in his mind: what would come next? Would their light withstand the deluge waiting just outside? It was a moment on the brink of revelation, and David realized, with every heartbeat, they were on the verge of something divine. The woman's house felt like a sanctuary amid a brewing storm. As the villagers settled into the warmth of her presence, David sensed the flickering light outside clashing with the inner glow that began to illuminate her joy. With each word shared, the air filled with a sense of deep belonging and peace, washing over them like a gentle tide. "Tell me more," she implored, leaning closer. "What have you seen in faith?" "Miracles," Sarah chimed, her eyes wide with excitement. "Hearts restored, families reunited. It's beyond what we can see with our eyes. It's knowing there's more at work, something beautiful." The widow's gaze softened, her lips trembling in disbelief mixed with hope. "Is it truly possible?" she whispered, the tentative stirrings of faith awakening within her. As David felt the warmth of her interest, he remembered his own moments of despair, of longing for understanding. He stepped closer, his voice clear and loyal. "I once stood where you are. I thought I was lost, yet through others' faith, I was shown the way back. God uses our darkness as a canvas for His light." A ripple of murmurs swept through the group, each one echoing a shared experience. One by one, they recounted their own stories of trials and victories. As their voices intertwined, a tapestry of memories unfolded, each testimony already a fragment of divine purpose in action. The widow's face transformed slowly, shadows of doubt lifting. "I thought I had lost everything with my husband, that I could never feel joy again. Where was God when everything fell apart?" David's heart ached for her, realizing how many times he had wrestled with the same question. "He was there even in silence, He was with you. Every tear, every moment of sadness, they hold significance. Just as every heartbeat today is a reminder that life breathes still." The winds outside howled in response, but instead of fear, the villagers stood more resolute. Wasn't He at the storms that brought the clearest skies afterward? "What if," the widow began, her eyes growing bright, "what if I carried this hope with me? What if I let it grow?" Joy surged, filling the room like a sweet fragrance. David motioned towards the window, lines etched of worry now faded from her face. Yes. You can be the light for others too. It starts here and now. As she wiped away the last remnants of her tears, laughter erupted. The sound was vibrant, breaking through the tension hanging like a distant thunderclap, signaling the heavens were indeed closer than they seemed. The wind howled louder, but within that home, it sounded like a jubilant chorus encouraging their declared faith. Each gust danced with anticipation. David could feel the Holy Spirit engaging around them, assuring him that this was no mere chance encounter, it was meant to be. Just then, a loud crack echoed through the air as a branch snapped, sending a tremor through the house. The room fell silent, a collective intake of breath, as curiosity and concern swept over them. What was that? The widow asked, drawing back slightly, doubt creeping into her tone. It's just the storm, Sarah reassured, though her own nerves quivered. We're safe here. But David felt something deeper, a divine challenge nestled in the winds. The storm wasn't simply a physical phenomenon, it was a test. And in that moment, he realized they were not only fighting to light the widow's darkened heart, they were standing in faith against the very forces threatening to snuff that light out. Hope begets courage, he declared, turning again to the window. We must face this storm together. Outside may rage in fury, but inside we will flourish. In that moment, a flash of light pierced the dark clouds, illuminating the space around them. It felt like a divine symbol of power, a sacred sign that God was indeed present. They weren't just gathering to share stories but to forge a community unbreakable even in the storm. Yet, as the winds howled like an animal let loose, David pondered silently, what would they fight against next? Would their bravery hold, or would the tempest bring forth another wave of doubt? As the light flickered uncertainly, he felt a tension weave through his spirit. Their victory was not just for this moment, and soon they would be called to face the greatest test yet, a test that would challenge every spark of faith they had nurtured. What awaited them in the next storm? And would they be ready to embrace the extraordinary strength that awaited, hidden within the very heart of their struggle? The wind continued to whip around the house, deafening in its intensity. Yet, within those four walls, something beautiful was being born. David felt the pulse of faith thrum in the very air they breathed. The stranger faces, once weary, now shone with the light of possibility. They were not just standing together against the storm, they were cultivating a garden of hope amidst uncertainty. Close your eyes, David urged gently. Let us seek the presence of God together. The widow hesitated, but as the murmurs of agreement filled the air, she surrendered, drawing a deep breath. David led them in prayer, his voice sturdy yet inviting. Lord, we come before you, even in our fears. Heal our hearts, renew our strength. As they prayed, the wind seemed to soften, its howl transformed into a whisper, hinting of something greater. With each word spoken, the room felt charged with presence, an electric conviction enveloping them. David could almost see light spilling forth as hope took shape, reaching out to touch their trembling spirits, fingers interlocked, surrendering to something beyond comprehension. Each heartbeat became a reminder of the lives yet to be renewed. Each ascent of breath spoke of longing, of trust in something infinite. It was no longer about just their fears, it was about a collective yearning for peace. Let faith arise, muttered Sarah, as the room opened up to the tender encouragement of shared prayers. David heard others join in, their voices rising, wrapping around God's promises. The windows rattled against the assault of the storm outside. Yet, in that moment, the villagers felt a shelter deeper than mere wood and stone. They were held in a divine embrace, comforted by the knowledge that their struggles served a purpose. Listen, can you hear it? David whispered, his eyes sparkling with revelation. A new sound emerged from outside, a faint melody intertwined with the winds. It was a sweet dirge that beckoned their hearts to align with its rhythm. It wasn't mere wind playing tricks. No, this was the harmony of the Spirit moving amongst them, buoying their faith. The widow gasped as she opened her eyes, tears glistening. "It's as if God is singing to us, reminding us He is here." "Exactly," he exclaimed, feeling the swell of inspiration rise within him. He is calling us to anticipate greater things. Our testimony is part of His unfolding story, a celebration intertwined with our faith journey. With renewed fervor, they shared promises and visions of what could be. David felt the fire in their hearts ignite, their aspirations painting a vivid picture of future rejoicing. It was more than hope, it was expectation. Amid the beauty of their gathering strength, he sensed a lurking shadow. Something deeper, a trial as yet unknown, waited just beyond the horizon. The winds were fierce, yet a new wave of urgency swelled within him. Would their hearts remain steadfast under the weight of coming tribulations? "Remember," he reminded them, "the storms of our lives may try to shatter our faith, but they can also unveil our true strength. There's a richness in the struggle it teaches and refines us. We will emerge from this stronger, not just for ourselves but for those who will look to us as beacons of light." The widow's face lit up, her voice rising amidst the swell of fervor. "And together, we can be a testament of God's faithfulness. Even in trials, we will shine." As the wind swirled outside, David's heart surged with conviction. There was no denying it, their path was about to take a pivotal turn. The storm wasn't just a stage for their courage to unfold, it was a gateway to something more profound, a call to rise beyond what any of them could anticipate. "Let this vessel be filled with wonder," he proclaimed, sensing the excitement ripple through the group once more. Yet as the storm raged on with even greater fury, a shiver ran down David's spine. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of an unimaginable test, and it was just within reach. What awaited them beyond this storm, and how would their spirits hold against the darkness yet to come? The atmosphere within the room thickened with expectancy. It was as if the very walls were holding their breath, waiting for the Lord's next move. David stood at the center, feeling the collective heartbeat of faith surrounding him. The faces that had once been etched with worry now glowed with hope, each prayer a thread weaving them deeper into God's tapestry. "Let us remember," he said, his voice cutting through the electrified silence, "our unity is our strength. Together, we can face whatever lies ahead." Nods and murmurs of agreement filled the space. David's heart swelled, he knew they were grasping the depth of trust required in trying times. "Let us continue to pray," he encouraged, "and believe that whatever the storm brings, God will use it for His glory." Letters, symbols of their lives, fell off their lips like petals, each prayer a petal released into the enveloping winds outside, surrendered with the hope of a vibrant bloom. As the winds howled louder, David continued praying, "Lord, grant us the wisdom to recognize your hand even amid turmoil. Help us see that our struggles can lead to a divine revelation." Lost in his supplications, he felt a shift. The air grew thicker, charged with something sacred. He opened his eyes, and for a moment, every person in the room seemed illuminated by a soft glow, a reflection of the Spirit moving among them. Then it happened. A soft thud echoed against the wall. The widow gasped, gripping the arm of the man beside her. "What was that?" she whispered tremulously. David turned, raising a hand for calm. "Let us not fear. It may be a reminder that God is moving in unexpected ways." Laughter burst forth from one of the villagers, breaking through the tension, a sign perhaps? An indication that he is about to do something amazing. Her words hung in the air like a soft echo, a balm against the fear threatening to seep back in. "Exactly," David shouted, enthusiasm bubbling forth. "Let us not fixate on our fears but instead anticipate His glory. This storm could be our moment of transformation." As he spoke, the winds outside intensified, crashing against the windows with vigor. It felt as if nature itself was responding to their gathering of faith. David thought of the biblical stories: the seas parted, the walls of Jericho fell. What if this was their moment? In the midst of the rising intensity, he felt an urge to declare what he sensed in his spirit. "I believe," he called, that soon we will witness the hand of God move mightily. What we face is not destruction, but a divine unveiling. Energized by the promise of his words, the villagers picked up on his fervor, voices lifting together in a chorus of trust. We are not just victims of this storm. We are warriors being prepared for victory. Sarah shouted, and her declaration stirred the hearts of many. David felt the room pulse with renewed strength. The melody outside swelled, like a song of triumph waiting to be sung. The storm outside transformed from a harbinger of fear to a herald of possibility, yet in the back of David's mind lingered a question, a challenge he couldn't ignore. What kind of victory awaited them? Would it lead to freedom, or would the trials ahead test every ounce of their strength and faith? He turned to the widow, whose eyes glistened with unshed tears. Are we ready, my friends? Are we ready to embrace whatever God sends our way? Their voices rose in unison, yes. We are ready. But even as they declared their readiness, a roar from the storm sent shivers down their spines. David couldn't shake the feeling that the ultimate challenge was yet to come. And in that charged moment, the reality of their faith began to take shape. Could they truly sustain their courage when confronted with the depths of the unknown? As the wind howled its fierce lament, David felt the weight of that truth settle heavily on his heart. What awaited them on the other side? Would they emerge as victors, or would they falter under the strain? The answers loomed ever closer, pulling at the edges of his spirit. What awaited them as they stepped into the unknown? Would they recognize the miracle despite their faltering hearts? The storm raged with an intensity that seemed to shake the very foundations of their faith. Within the walls of the widow's home, the villagers clung to hope, their hearts synchronized in a rhythm of trust, despite the howling shadows lurking outside. David stood at the forefront of their gathering, sensing the palpable tension along with a spirit of divine expectation. He raised his voice against the storm, filling the space with proclamation, purpose, and promise. Whatever we face, we do not face it alone. His words rang out, charged with fervor, igniting flames of hope among his friends. God is with us, standing firm even when the winds howl. With every word, he grew more resolute, and the others began to reflect that strength. The widow's eyes shone with a newfound light, and the weariness clinging to her spirit began to fade away. They were warriors, armed with faith, ready to confront the storm together. As they shared testimonies of God's goodness, a gentle light seeped into the room. David felt a shift in the atmosphere. Something was changing, something sacred was brewing. Together, they declared prayers, their voices flowing like a river of faith, saturating the besieged walls with hope. Each heartfelt supplication was met by a responding force, as if God himself was reaffirming their every word. In that moment, the wind outside seemed to fade, grounding itself in reverent anticipation. And then suddenly, a crash echoed, and David turned towards the window, sensing the storm moving with ferocity. This is our moment, he shouted, emboldened by the presence of the Lord enveloping them. What we see is not the end, but the beginning, a moment of breakthrough. The villagers erupted in fervor, their collective faith lifting them higher as they stood together in the face of uncertainty. They recognized the strength that held them firm. Their hearts swelled with a fearless resonance, knowing they had aligned with divine possibility. The whispers of angels sang in the air, the presence of the Holy Spirit was unmistakable. As the winds howled again, this time it sounded like a symphony, harmonizing with their prayers. Lift your voices, David cried. Let us declare victory over this storm. With overwhelming unity, the prayers surged forth. Healing, restoration, faith. Each word strengthened their spirits, calling on miracles in faith's name, and just then, as if the heavens themselves were aligned with their cries, a light burst through the dimness. A fierce light invaded their gathering, spilling into every crevice of despair. It was so brilliant, it felt like the dawn breaking amidst the darkest night. David's heart raced. Was this the sign they had been yearning for? With that divine illumination, a realization dawned. An understanding that amidst their storm, there was a chance to grow, shine, and bring forth transformation. This darkness will not claim us. This storm is a catalyst for something great." His voice was filled with conviction, and the villagers echoed him, sensing their faith igniting into a fire unfathomable. Suddenly, the widow stood up, her voice trembling but full of authority. "I will not falter in my faith. I will rise with strength and joy because I know my God is here." The urgency in her words reverberated through the room. Each villager took up the shout, voices coalescing into a powerful force that rattled the windows. These were not mere words but declarations forging a path where none existed. With that, David glanced back towards the window. The ominous clouds began to swirl and shift. Was it possible? A light piercing through the chaos? He stepped closer, heart pounding in synchrony with the fervor around him. In the distance, he felt a stirring. The winds began to calm, whispering promises of peace yet unknown. "Look!" Someone pointed, and as they all turned, the light exploded beyond the storm, almost blindingly bright, a promise embodied in the brilliance of the sun breaking forth. "This is just the beginning," David shouted amidst the wonder. It was a manifestation of hope being realized, of the miracles awaiting to unfold in the face of challenges that had felt insurmountable. One by one, the villagers surged forward, drawn towards the light and the promise it carried. David felt the atmosphere shift once more as awakening washed over them like a powerful tide. The room shone with anticipation, breaths caught in excitement, the echoes of trials transforming into the sweet fragrances of victory and testimony. As they stepped outside into the waning storm, the sun cascading warmth upon their faces, David looked at each one of them, reflecting not just their faces but the deep reservoirs of faith began to burst forth. The journey wasn't over, it was a beautiful inception of purpose. Together they would carry their light back into the village, healing, transforming, and inspiring others to embrace the glory of God's work. In their hearts, they knew they would illuminate even the darkest of places. The power of their faith acted as a beacon for others awaiting the touch of the divine. As they marched forth, emboldened and joyful, it became evident through storms, brokenness, and revitalization, they were embracing miracles as they emerged into a renewed existence. This was their testimony, their story woven by hands unseen, inviting others to enter into the picture brushed on the canvas of divine grace. And now, dear friends, as we share this testimony, I urge you to nourish this journey of faith. Subscribe immediately to our channel so that together, we don't miss out on the next exclusive stories of faith that inspire and uplift us all. Leave a like now to stir the algorithm and spread this message far and wide. It is essential to support such vital work. Comment below your heartfelt reactions and testimonies about this journey we've shared, as your stories hold tremendous power. And finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who are waiting for their miracles. This is the moment to show your unwavering support. Stand firm in faith, be the light, and let us continue this divine journey together.